15th day of February 2023. Hey, doggy. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Dana Durnford, a nuclear proctologist.org, and we do forensic investigative journalism into the nuclear industry's malfeasance and egregious betrayals. You can call in at 709-589-4406. Numbers on your screen if you're just sitting back. So they got a false flag today at Malmstrom at Montana nuclear base lockdown was lifted. This is the strangest story in human history. The U.S. Air Force Base was running a drill, but that didn't come out till after. It prompted officials to issue a shelter-in-place advisory for nearby schools. Total mayhem. No shots were fired. Nobody was injured at the Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls. The base said as it lifted the lockdown in a statement posted on social media. Anybody on social media is considered crazy, except for them, I suppose. A suspicious person on the base had been reported as an active shooter. My God, this is insane. Now, Malmstrom had just begun that morning a scheduled in advance training exercise of, you guessed it, an active shooter response drill on their Air Force Base when the report came in of a real active shooter on a military base. Somebody with a gun on a military base. Holy shit, that's insane. What's the odds? They must have been terrified, the poor fucking mass murderers. When the report came in of a real active shooter at another location on the military industrial complex's base is full of weapons everywhere. They can't handle an active shooter at a military base. No wonder they lost the Vietnam War. They only had sticks. I just don't know. I should run my head into a fucking wall 5 or 6 times after reading that. Or sit down and cry because it's so fucking corrupt. Oh, we're like that tonight, are we already? Well, like, what do you expect me to be like when they're running a drill? Like, they came out and they terrified the population, locked down the schools while they were having a drill on their base. Why is it with all of these drills we see the same thing happening? That's how they get their jollies, right? Nobody was injured except for all the people in the community, and the children are terrified in the fucking schools. You stupid bunch of morons. It's just a bunch of friggin' morons. Really, right? You give them a fucking uniform, and they're the most loathsome people on the planet till they get out of that uniform. When they get out of the uniform, they're normally back to normal people again. As long as they get that stupid uniform on, though. Get that off my chest. That pisses me off. Here's more stupid today. Look at this. This is nuclear waste canisters covered in copper. And the official story, according to the Canadian Nuclear Waste Management Organization, right, was that if you put a copper coating, like 1/32 of an inch coating of copper, it won't break down for at least 1 million years. But like this, why don't we make nuclear containment vessels out of copper, I wonder? Because the Wigner effect's still going to apply to that. And Fukushima fruit. Oh, yummy, yummy. Don't worry, you can't taste the radiation. Like, how did we get this stupid on this planet this quick? 1 hour, 46 minutes, 29 seconds last night's show. At 13 views after this hard... Like, I work so hard on these shows, it's ridiculous. And YouTube guts me every time. I had 81 viewers, which meant I should have had around 60 views when the show was over. I get 13. Every single show, they rob me. They don't do it to other people, though, for some reason. Should disgusting, stupid TEPCO be removed from Fukushima 4 nuclear meltdowns and 8 spent fuel pools explosion site? That was the poll last night. Somebody accidentally said no, but everybody else got it together. So instead of gaining 6 seconds 12 hours later like my typical videos will do, that's why you should watch my videos in the first 12 hours before they put that software, whatever the frig they're doing to me. Nobody else's videos gets 6 seconds longer. This one got 4 seconds. Was it shorter? Now this is known to happen, but it's pretty rare. So it got 4 seconds shorter. So what did they clip out of my video? So they probably clipped something a few seconds out of my video and then added their 6 seconds in, right? You can be sure they're not going to not do it. Whatever the frig they've been doing to this site since I got it. They took down my other site with 24,000 subscribers 2 years ago. And I was out looking for spiders that are missing from the ecosystem because of Fukushima radioactive fallout. Hi, everybody. By the way, we got a poll tonight. A little all over the place tonight every day. A little bit. Should degenerate nuclear professionals, like academics and scientists, work at the Fukushima nuclear meltdown? I mean, it's 13 years almost. Shouldn't they work there now? They're ran out of homeless and destitute and victims of society. Now they're counting on the immigrants that don't speak the language to work there. Nuclear scientists don't work at Fukushima. And we're off to a good roll on that one. I got 22 votes. Big votes already. Welcome, everybody. Let's get into the earthquake stuff tonight right away. Because last night we we went the roundabout way before we got to the earthquake stuff. Because we believe that the number one reactor fuel pools at the Shika nuclear power plant melted down. And, now, we've been covering this since January the 1st, and we covered it exclusively for almost 30 days. Well, we did cover nuclear stories a little bit, but generally we covered this event where there's a nuclear power plant. I think we need to be looking at the Fukushima nuclear power plants, which had 7 reactors running and somehow got no attention whatsoever. Trains resume on quake-hit line. Well, it's just a little tiny section, right? I shouldn't complain because if it wasn't for media, I wouldn't have anything to scream about, I suppose. And these scumbags, these are just scumbags, the media. They're a whole different level of scumbags, right? Like the wino on the street corner in the cities are nice people compared to nuclear scientists and nuclear academics. If I see a nuclear scientist, I would cross the road because I'm afraid they're going to attack me or something. Because they're not stable people, right? Train resumes on quake-hit line. This is quite... First off, it's only going to be going 40 kilometers an hour. And it's only going to be a tiny little section. But the media got to come out and paint it as if there's progress when there's actually not. It's 7 weeks later. It's 7 weeks. You know, there was an earthquake in 2022 of Fukushima, about 50 kilometers off the coastline. And the railway track in multiple prefectures was destroyed in about 1,000 places. And they talked about that. They showed that. They mentioned that quite a few times. But in Noto Peninsula, they wouldn't even let the military, the American military, with search and rescue dogs and special teams, or China with search and rescue dogs and professional teams of search and rescue, or India and many other countries go in and rescue the victims, including the self-defense forces from Japan, weren't allowed to go in the crucial 72 hours. Now, what could invoke that? We've never seen that before, see? Even in Fukushima, they did pull them back for a bit, but then they let them go because they didn't want the nuclear story to get any worse than it already was. The January 1st quake-hit railway partially resumed service. So you got to read multiple news stories in order to get some facts. The major media is just going to lie. I mean, they're just going to spit in your face and lie and laugh at you too when you're walking away crying. A railway line fully suspended due to damage from the January 1st powerful earthquake in the Noto Peninsula. Well, it's not a Noto Peninsula no more. It's a great big wreckage up there. And they just had a 3,000 to 4,000 year old fault line go snap, which means uh-oh. And it's preceded by 3 years of 8,000 small earthquakes. And pre-2020, you would get an average of 20 a year. So when you're getting 8,000 earthquakes a year and you don't move out of there, I'm not going to paint the picture any more than that because I don't think I should have to. Let's put it this way. You're not lazy. You're just, stupid. A railway line fully suspended due to damage from the January 1st powerful earthquake in the Noto Peninsula, Ishikawa Prefecture, central Japan, partially resumed operation Thursday. That's quite different from the last story, isn't it? Such as the sinking of platforms, displacement of tracks at a number of locations. There was 1,400 fucking landslides. We're going down that road tonight, folks, so might as well get used to it. I don't see this switching off anytime soon. And collapses of embankments. You're talking 1,400 landslides. They didn't even clean them up for the first 25 days. And that's why there was no search and rescue teams or any kind of volunteers can get in there. Even today is very difficult. Why wouldn't you clean up? Like the communities will clean up one side, the federal government will clean up from the other side. If it's that type of scenario, or the next communities, they'll clean up and they'll meet each other in the middle. But even the communities with severe damage didn't clean up the streets. So fire trucks and backhoes and heavy equipment or anything else, trucks with supplies or anything else can get in there. Nothing makes any sense. The whole story is like screaming, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. There's a big cover-up, right? Like Malmstrom Air Force Base had an active shooter drill. A drill that was already scheduled, and yet they went out and panicked the whole community, and all the kiddies in school were terrified, hiding under their desk, like the duck and cover days, I got to drink my tea for a change. Why it's hot? If I don't drink it when it's hot, then what's the point of getting hot tea? They only had about 20 people on the first train. Only under 10% of the registered volunteers actually work in central Japan quake-hit areas. Under 10% of the 25,000 who are pre-registered. Under 10% of the 25,000 pre-registered for the Ishikawa prefectural government announced 8-day work of art, right? What did the Ishikawa prefectural government do for the Noto Peninsula with several 100,000 people after the earthquake? They left them to their own devices. Where there was 30,000 people in refugee shelters were living on a slice of bread, a single slice of bread, and a paper cup of water a day, which is not even a glass of water, it's half a glass of water. That's what they lived on for 19 days. And then some of the like schools that had vending machines, and people were so desperate they broke into the vending machines for a little bit of nutrition. And the police were going to charge them. It's called abandoning them, right? That's what they done. The Japanese government. But I've never seen that before. And the only thing that stands out was there was a nuclear power plant that the Japan Times, the mouthpiece of the Japanese government, said had an earthquake in the basement of number 1 reactor that was upper 5, which is a 6, on Japan's scale of 7. We use a scale of 10, right? So you got to use their scale. You got to multiply by 1.428. So I get a little cranky sometimes when I talk about that peninsula, I notice. The low numbers of volunteers because you can poison a couple of billion people by not having an opportunity to avoid it. The low numbers of volunteers is said to be due to the long hours of travel required to get to the disaster-hit area. Well, it's about 100 kilometers, so generally it would take you an hour. Now it takes 8.5 hours. So they haven't cleaned it up. They haven't fixed it. They haven't made any way. And lack of sufficient local preparedness, such as shortages of portable toilets. They don't even have toilets for the people in the refugee centers and the so-called shelters, which are brutal. Where, like the story we covered last night, where Buddy was saying, like, I just concentrate on staying warm because they got no heat. And not drinking too much or eating anything because there's no bathrooms. That's called abandoning them, right? Pay taxes all your life, hundreds of thousands of people, and the government takes it and just burns it wherever you feel like it. And when you finally need a bit of help, they're like, you just shut up and eat your slice of bread and your cup of water. We'll get to you at some point in the next 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks. Don't forget who you are. You're a slave. We're the government. We're special. You're nothing. You're nobody. We're the government. We're real people. But you're just a citizen. You're a fucking nobody. The only people that has any influence in the friggin' planet right now is people that you hired to go do a simple job for your community or your country. And they immediately told you to fuck off when you got the job. And now is doing everything they can to fuck up your life. Some nights are like that. About 250 volunteers per day are working in 8 cities and towns, including Fukushima. However, the round trip to Suzu, which is at the top of the Noto Peninsula, the Ishikawa Prefecture's Noto Peninsula, northernmost city, which is Suzu, where the mayor said 4,500 of the 5,000 homes, not counting the businesses, but the homes have dropped, completely destroyed. Takes about 8.5 hours to get there. So they can only work for a couple hours, then they got to travel 8.5 hours back home. Or I think that's a round trip. Yeah, round trip. So that's a 12-hour day if they work 2 hours. Yet the military, doing nothing like picking their noses and wasting your money in Japan, could be in there and they're motivated, they're young, they're healthy, they got equipment, they got everything at their fingertips. They can spend your tax dollars and get shit done. Don't want to put them in there. That costs government money. They're sending people that are just good-natured, but it's ineffective in every sense of the word. Japan's a shithole country, right? The government there is one of the worst you can imagine. They're insane, actually. They never stopped growing food in a nuclear wasteland, for goodness sakes. Japan's Post accepting packages to address the quake-hit areas 7 weeks later. We got some mail for you. You're going to love this. For quake-hit areas with 8 post offices. And here's the list of the post offices. What's missing from this list of post offices? This is all the big cities and communities except for one. There's one community missing, which happens to be the community where they had a 8.5 on the Richter scale or a 6 out of 7 on Japan's seismic intensity Shindu scale, called Shika. And Shika got 21,000 people. Surely the fuck they need mail too. How come Shika nuclear power plant is not on that list? Well, we don't want the post office going up there, Dana. They might have Geiger counters. Might take pictures. 21,000 people in Shika, nobody got a fucking camera. I'm sick of nuclear. I want to go to war. If I had an army, I'd be gone to fucking war against these people a long time ago. Toyoma quake-hit fishing tourist industry works to rebound. Like, what the frig is this? And like the community's in, there's several thousand houses that collapse and they show you a crack in the ground. Well, he said he can't find crabs out there. He can barely find any crabs whatsoever. And this fisherman here lost all of his pots because the earthquake had lifted the ocean floor and it caused all kinds of things, and it allegedly buried all of his lobster pots. And he's been, or crab pots, he's been there for 49 years. He's a man of the ocean, right? And he says, well, I can't find anything out there even with the new pots. They're gone. And the tourist industry is like, well, we got people coming back. Look at the beautiful little rooms, eh? Oh, honey, let's go to Japan and eat some rice and some sake and get cancer and heart problems and liver problems, lung problems and respiratory and pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline problems. What, they got a picture of a fucking alien on their bed or something? The Japanese are like aliens. At least the government is. Why are we recycling the same pictures for 46 days? Why are we seeing these pictures again 46 days? This town had thousands of buildings collapsed, and all they show you is these 200 buildings that caught fire over and over and over and over and over. What's up with that? Like, we probably got 25 pictures of other stuff. The rest of it is this spot here. I know we only been covering it for 45 days. There's 55,000 houses destroyed. Well, severely damaged. Around 40,000 are completely destroyed. Not that we got any proof of it whatsoever. That's just the Noto Peninsula. There was 6,900 homes in Nagata by the nuclear power plant that were completely destroyed through liquefaction and earthquakes and the land rising up and everything else from a 3,000 to 4,000 year old fault line that just ruptured after almost 4 millenniums. Badly damaging or destroying 49,000 homes. We know the number's over 55,000 because we've covered it. And the repair bill is as high as $17.6 billion. Remember the scumbags originally, when not Shinzo, he's dead, thank goodness. Shinzo Abe. It was probably one of the only happy story I got in the last 13 fucking years was Shinzo Abe got assassinated. Because he's the guy who poisoned at least 4 billion people with food from a nuclear wasteland. You can't switch that fucker off. But at least they switched him off. The repair bill now, so when Kishida went down there after, 20 days or something? The estimate came out, it was around $6 billion worth of damage. Now they're $17.6 billion. You know, that's going to go up and up and up and up. There's communities there where they're not going to get the water or sewage restored for at least 2 years because they got to do everything. And nothing's stable. They still got massive aftershocks all day. Remember, for the last 3 years, they're getting 8,000 earthquakes a year, 21 a day. You can't rebuild that peninsula. That peninsula needs to be left alone for 3,000 or 4,000 years. And now they admit, like, instead of giving you actual numbers, the closest we got to an actual number, the damage is they got 2.5 million tons of wreckage, which if you put a ton of wreckage in a 1-ton pickup truck bumper to bumper, that's 2 roads of traffic, or a road traffic across Canada and a road traffic bumper to bumper across America. That's how much wreckage we're talking about. And it ain't this spot either. This is only 200 businesses. So what are they hiding? Why are they so deceptive? Why are they so dishonest? Why are they so deceitful? Why are they so disingenuous? What the hell is wrong with these people? These gruesome, dishonest, deceitful, dishonorable, double-dealing, just ghastly. Kishida was accused in Parliament of waiting too long to send members of self-defense forces to the worst-hit areas. Waiting too long. He wouldn't let the Americans go in there with their search and rescue dogs and teams. Wouldn't let China go into their search and rescue dogs and teams. Wouldn't let India with their specialized search and rescue dogs and teams in the vital first 72 hours or ever after. Nobody's ever went in there. And he even said it originally because we covered it. It's stunning, really. Why did he keep showing us this place over and over and over when the whole fucking peninsula went boom, pow, bang, whack, jang? This is shameful stuff. This is just scandalous. It's deplorable. It's despicable. It's beyond the pale. It's dishonorable. It's discreditable. It's reprehensible that they can't go in and rescue people. I didn't realize my picture was in there. Sorry. Let's check the poll over here, I guess. Should nuclear professionals, scumbags, work at the Fukushima nuclear meltdown instead of the victims of society, the immigrants that don't speak the language, the homeless and the destitute? Because that's who's working there. That's your heroes. They ain't fucking scientists. They ain't nuclear academics. How many people from Harvard or Yale or Stanford or Oxford or MIT or any other shithole has made a video at Fukushima saying, here, at the ground zero at Fukushima, wearing their little Shinzo Abe pins on their chest? I think if it ever becomes legal to hunt humans, we should start off with the nuclear industry, get rid of them first. Wishful thinking, I know, but hey, you never know. If the world wakes up to nuclear, that's going to happen, I can assure you. If the world wakes up and sees what they got fucking done to us. Okay. This has gone to shit already, nothing I can do about it. I'm just very, 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 very displeased with the nuclear industry, to say the least. And that false flag at the air base today, that really pissed me off. So they say the epicenter is at the top of the peninsula, up by Suzu. And the mayor came out in the first 3 days and said, we got 90% of the houses are destroyed and collapsed. It's all destroyed. Everything else is probably destroyed now. And after 3 days, that narrative never showed up since. We never heard another story about it. They never come out and said, he was wrong or nothing. There was nothing said. They went fucking silent. What were they doing at that port? Were they shipping nuclear waste from that port, I wonder? I believe they were, right? The Shitka disease factory, the community of Shitka was the biggest earthquake, was a 7, was the strongest earthquake Japan can have, which was a 7 on their Shindu seismic intensity scale of 7. And they don't even get fucking mail. No volunteers, no nothing. No pictures. 21,000 people with cameras. We still got no pictures. There's nothing independent that leaked out whatsoever. Nothing. When normally there's all kinds of people saying, oh my God, look at my community, look at my house, look at my front porch. Japan is like zipper tight. Total information control. And no one's allowed near Shitka. In fact, there's 1,400 landslides, and they didn't clear any of the landslides. Like, you expect a few of them anyway. Holy shit. Because normally they clean them all right away. You see 10, 20, 30 backhoes and excavators and dump trucks going full tilt 24 hours a day. Big generators full of fucking lights like football stadiums all up there at that. Like little busy bees, like little ants all night, all day. And they fucking open that road right up. Well, not this time. Oh, sorry, Bobby Dewey. Hickory. Bob Dewey Hickle. Missing cat reunited with the owner over 1 month after the Noto quake. My dear beloved cat that's long gone. That's what she look at it, she go. She said, okay, I'll let you. Don't puke on my fucking floor. And she skip out the door and no more. She wouldn't puke no more. That was her way of saying open the fucking door for me. Or I'm going to puke on your floor. And because if it pukes on the floor, I would let her out right away. Get out of here, you little bastard. I loved her with all my soul, mind you, but she had a real attitude, that one. Everything was on her terms. Missing cat reunited, and she used to bring me these big fucking spiders as a gift to let him run across the room. He'd be like, oh my God. Is that a rat or a spider? I think that's a fucking spider. I'm getting out of the house for a while. Leave the windows open. It'll find its way out. Missing cat united with the owners over 1 month after the Noto quake. Well, I think that's an unusual story, right? He was uninjured but had no appetite and was thin. He's not uninjured if he's thin. He originally weighed 10 or 5 kilograms. Before the disaster, he was a kilogram lighter when they returned. And at the hospital, he was diagnosed with extreme dehydration and anemia and received an intravenous drip. Did he have radiation poisoning from being out in the environment and shake a nuclear meltdown at the number one fuel pool? So why did they say they had a massive earthquake in the basement of the number one reactor building? These reactors were shut down, but at the top of it was around 10 reactor cores stored in. At the worst spots you can put a fuel pool is above a nuclear reactor. It's literally the stupidest spot you can put a fuel pool. It's the most idiotic, moronic thing. And Japan that's all their buildings were designed that way. So if one goes down, you're going to contaminate the entire ecosystem worldwide for 1 million years. And so those engineers should get the death sentence for what they done by engineering it like that. And they're still around. Those pieces of shit are actually still around breathing air, wasting our precious air. 4.7 magnitude quake rocks Japan's Noto region. It was a couple of days ago. I just want to make sure I cover it. It rocks the Noto. They've been rocked by around 1,600 major aftershocks, but half of them were over 3 on Japan's seismic intensity scale of 7, which is like a 5 on the Richter scale. They're significant earthquakes, see? Virginia House Senate okays a bill to advance development. I'm getting better at turning the volume off rather than rattling everybody's ears. Virginia's House Senate okayed a bill to advance development of small modular nuclear reactors. I'm like, I don't want to read it. I'm so sick of these stories. Something that don't even exist. Scientists think there could be a unicorn out there, but it's going to cost around $80 billion to go look for it. And don't worry, we're not going to raise your bills too much to pay for it. That's how these people work, right? That's what they're doing here, by the way. Well, we got to develop it. We're not going to pay for it out of our pocket. Why should we pay for it out of our pocket? Well, because if you don't develop it, why should we waste our money on... Like, NuScale didn't succeed very good. Why do we want to go down that road again? You know what I mean? You with me or what? Like, nuclear industry is like literally running your head into a wall. Makes more sense than trying to pick some fucking sense out of nuclear. Could help advance the deployment. It could help. Could help. The deployment of small modular reactors in the state. I'll be good. I'll try to be good for 5 minutes here. Hang on. Breathe in and nose out the mouth. Stomach in, chest out, shoulders back, chin up. Here we go. Let's get it on, baby. Despite environmental ratepayer advocates' concerns about the cost utility customers could bear for the yet-to-be-used technology. The yet-to-be-used, yet-to-be developed. It doesn't exist. What do you mean, yet-to-be-used technology? You piece of shit, whoever wrote that. Legislation from Dell Israel, O. Quinn, and R. Washington would allow Appalachian, is that how you pronounce it? Appalachian power companies to recover early development costs, allow power companies to develop early development costs for small modular reactors that don't exist. There's 100 companies already doing. Why not let one of them come up with a fucking reactor and waste your money on another one? Because you don't come up with solutions. You don't. Why not? Like anything small modular reactors can do, geothermal can do a fucking 10 times better, and at least a decade before the so-called anything nuclear can be close to being running. Including expenses related to valuation, design, engineering, environmental analysis, permitting, land options, and early site permitting. Just literally everything but the fucking kitchen sink. So they want the ratepayers to pay for all of it. For the development, the early development, the expenses related to the evaluation. Just evaluation. Well, we're not going to look at it unless the taxpayers pay for it. And let's just take it right out of their fucking pockets and put it on their bill. Don't take it out of the treasury. Let's take it right out of their fucking pockets. Because they're already struggling because of your relentless scams. Design, engineering, environmental analysis, permitting, land options, and early site permitting. And do you think it's going to stop there or anywhere near that? And a similar bill from Senator Dave Marsden, D. Fairfax, would apply to both Appalachian Power and Dominion Energy and allow certain additional costs. It's not bad enough you're going to rob them fucking everything. Now you're going to more cost, such as those related to federal licensing to be recouped by jacking up your energy bills. And like NuScale, you've done that with NuScale on a different way, but NuScale went on the stock exchange without a fucking reactor. They put them on the stock exchange, and everybody was encouraged and enticed and coerced and manipulated and deceived into investing in fucking NuScale, who just stole the 90% of that money for administration. And the investors are now all left with nothing. Not only that, a lot of the investors, the original investors, not counting the stock market, but the original investors, the communities, are now going to sue NuScale, so good luck on the investors getting any money back. They don't got as deep pockets as those communities do. Like everything screams scumbag. Degenerate scumbags. It's all about getting to the head of the line, putting Virginia first in terms of the supply chain. Like these are the most ludicrous assertions imaginable. For these, when they become reliable and a good source of energy, Marsden said during a committee hearing. Come on, just give us whatever we want. We'll leave you alone. What do you want? Well, we want everything. In other words, they just want a big money grab. They're not going to fucking come up with a solution. They're not going to work it out. You got 100 companies out there can't work it out. Who the hell the fuck are these supposed to be any different? What makes these guys the best? But while both measures gained enough support to clear the chambers ahead of the crossover deadline, not every lawmaker was on board. It took us long enough to tell us that, didn't you? Halfway through the article before we get that kind of nog. Said Tuesday he couldn't get in good conscience vote for Marsden's because of a potential rate increase. Potential! Right? Notice how they try to make it look so benign and innocent and, trying to paint a murderer as semi-human doesn't work, right? But while both measures gained enough support to clear the chambers ahead of the crossover, we'd already done that one. Small modular reactors, as the name implies, scaled-down versions of nuclear reactors can be manufactured off-site and built at lower cost than conventional nuclear plants, except they can't. Like, I'm so sick of that lie. Look at NuScale. NuScale was going to produce 460 megawatts, not a gigawatt even, but a megawatts, for around 20-something billion. The numbers are mind-boggling what we're talking about. 20 billion for half the wattage of a large nuclear power plant that you should be able to build for about 4 billion. And I don't know why it costs 4 billion. I got no idea. Outside that the majority of the money is going to be stole through administration. At what point are you going to pull your pants up? At what point are you going to take your fucking finger, your thumb out of your butt and pull your pants back up and look somebody in the eye, Governor? Glenn Youngkin, has been particularly enthusiastic about a technology that doesn't exist and signing memorandums of understanding for something that doesn't exist instead of coming up with solutions for the constituency. The most egregious betrayal conceivable is what he's doing. Including in it, his 4-year energy plan is a way to provide around-the-clock energy. Because allegedly, there's no storage for wind and solar, right? See, if you put wind in many different places, and if you put windmills on the mountains where the wind blows all the time, you can't fucking say that anymore, right? But if you use geothermal, which is everywhere it's everywhere on the planet, all the bottom of the oceans included, but it's everywhere on the planet. You can tap into geothermal, and you can just do it for your home, right, with a heat pump. You drill down 100 feet. And you can maintain the temperature in your house in cold winters at around 60 degrees. That's pretty amazing for a one-time investment. And then in the summertime, when it's 90 or 100 degrees at a time, you can maintain the temperature in your house at around 60 degrees to the same heat pump with no magic tricks. So if you go down several, say 10 kilometers, you're going to be hitting 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, which is hotter than nuclear, is hotter than coal, is hotter than oil, is hotter than gas. But no, that don't make no fucking sense. Because then you won't be able to steal billions and billions and billions and fuck over everybody that gave you a job. Governor. Last year, Republican legislators attempted to make nuclear qualify as a renewable source. Don't worry, the Democrats in the Senate rejected the proposal, but the next administration will do the same fucking thing as the Republicans done, right? They'll get their way. It's just a matter of time, and it won't be that much time. They'll get their way. Because nothing matters on these stupid nuclear. Nothing else there's no competition allowed. They'll scuttle everything so that nuclear can survive another fucking day and radiate all these farms they're surrounded by. Because all nuclear power plants, except for a few, surrounded by farms. All the nuclear power plants, once they put fuel in the pool, it's over for your population. It's hemorrhaging radiation because it's still splitting atoms and there's no containment. When is this world going to grow up? At what fucking point is this world going to grow up? If I thought we can beat sense into them, you know what I'd be doing right now with a stick, don't you? It removed language in Virginia law that stated planning and development activities for new nuclear facilities were in the public's interest. In other words, public got to pay for it. Planning and development activities. Right now they're scraping the barrel. What is America? $34 trillion in debt? What's the fucking interest in $34 trillion, I wonder? Utility lobbyists have argued that the proposals will let the companies conduct important preliminary work. Lobbyists. Lobbyists. that under the original American Constitution was illegal. And the only reason explain why a lobbyist exists. So in the 1930s, corporations, through constitutional lawyers, changed the Constitution and the part that gives slaves human rights. And they amended it to give corporation human rights, is known as corporate personhood. And so Supreme Court Justice at the time, Hugo Black, had wrote an eloquent dissent of how absurd it was that an amendment meant to free slaves from an oppressive government was now going to be used by corporations to oppress the sovereign people, which is the people. So, think about what we mean when I say sovereign people. So here's how taxes were supposed to work according to the Constitution and charters, was that, and this, by the way, that's why lobbyists exist, is because they piggybacked in on the slavery law as corporations, and they're protected. Certain human rights, they have protection, which normally on a charter, the government is able to contain the company. So if the company pollutes the community or abuses the employees or is negligent on his bills and stuff like this, or his quality of workmanship, that the company could be seized. Restitution could be liquidated. The company could be liquidated. Restitution paid to the employees, and to mitigation of environmental contamination, and that the leaders of the owners of the companies could be sent to jail. And this was an incentive not to be evil, see? But once you gave them corporate personhood, now there's no incentive because you can't convict them. The company can get a fine, but it doesn't matter because they don't pay state, federal, local taxes, right? Because they're a corporate person. And so they can put their money in offshore accounts legally, but it's illegal under the Constitution. If you challenge that Constitution, a corporate personhood, you would win if you were well funded, because it's an illegal amendment to the slavery laws. It was never meant, because you took away the ability to have an incentive for corporations not to be evil, this is why like the munitions factories are on the stock exchanges, so that way they can't go to jail and be sued by countries that they destroyed eventually. See? So lobbyists, normally pre-1930, pre-changes to the slavery laws, was illegal. But because now you have corporations with human rights, lobbyists were able to. And if you want to look at how that plays out, so the Israeli Airpac lobbying group has 7,500 lobbyists in America. So if you want to vote from a senator, that's 7,500 emails, 7,500 phone calls. That's 7,500 people with a suitcase of money trying to get you to listen to them for 2 seconds. Right? So they send you a picture. Hey, I'm at the coffee shop. Here's my face. And look what's in my briefcase. It's only $1 million. Did you drop that the other day? I thought I'd see you drop that when you were walking home. You should come down and grab it. Oh, by the way, we wouldn't mind having a quick second with you to vote. That's how it's done, right? And how do you defeat that, see? Without an organization set up exactly like them to do the same thing. The reason we're doing this is that the technologies of small modular reactors aren't quite mature enough yet. What? They're not mature? They don't even exist, silly. We wanted to go ahead and get this first piece out of the way before the technology has matured. It's at least 30 years from maturity, if at all. Like, once geothermal goes mainstream, nobody's going to want to look at nuclear, gas, oil, or coal again, period, or wind or solar. Because every community can just do their own geothermal and then pay it off themselves in 10 years. And then no more inflation on their energy. And so the nuclear industry has scuttled all of that because they understand they're going to lose trillions of dollars. Worldwide, you're talking multi-trillions. Both Jackson and Dominion lobbyists, Bernard McNamee, he's a former member of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, for Christ's sakes. You know, when Obama left the White House, there was 400 of his staff joined the lobbying groups. What a piece of shit he turned out to be, eh? So spreading out cost over a long period of time would also prevent customers from seeing a greater rate increase at the time of a potential reactor is built. So when NuScale failed, this is what they came up with to keep the cash cow going. So let's just raise everybody's bill on speculation. Yeah, we'll get there. It could take a couple of 100 years. We'll get there. Somebody will. But we should lay the foundation so that the world can never breathe air again. The water will never be safe to drink again. And so that you don't have to worry about insects because they'll be exterminated. This is a reasonable process in order to smooth out the cost to customers, said the fucking lobbyists. The degenerate, despicable, hateful, scumbag lobbyists. The revolting parasite / lobbyists. Both O'Quinn's and Marsden's bill would give the Senate the State Corporation Commission ability to review any preliminary small modular reactor costs, like that is ever going to happen, The utility has to recover from customers. Rubber stamp. Here, I'm going to send you over a rubber stamp. I haven't got time. I got too many other lobbyists trying to pay me money. Here's a rubber stamp. Have a nice fucking life. There are some differences between them. Marsden will let the utilities recover their cost. The federal approval is expensive that can cost millions, and yet good luck if it was only millions. Even then it would be just a disaster. But it was never going to be just millions. Millions with a whole bunch of zeros. And equipment, well, O'Quinn's would not. Well, he hasn't got much of a future, that fella. But some environmental ratepayer groups have argued any legislation should require the utilities to prove there's a need for small modular reactors and that it's a better option than the alternative technologies. Thank God that story's gone. Those stories really upset me, eh? Not a little bit either. They upset me. Got a couple pictures at the end. So I mounted the new winch on the back of the quad this morning because I'm a fucking dummy. I didn't do it yesterday. And I went out and got stuck 3 times. Thank God I had that thing on the back of the quad. Because what happened was, like, we've had a blizzard for about 36 hours, right? And today it got warmer. And so you got all kinds of water down there that froze. And so if you burn tires, now you're on ice. And that winch got me out twice. But I had to get the neighbor to help me with one. Which is just because I high centered it because I got cocky, right? So I ended up high centering the quad because the snowplow left a friggin' pile in front of the house. It was like, oh my God. Nuclear power's role in New York's clean energy shift. Nuclear money posse. That's hilarious. And so New York, let me concentrate. Let me get back to that. New York. Because I'm like a 6-year-old sometimes. I can be distracted pretty quick, right? Especially when I'm so cranky with what they done to the Montana Air Force Base. There was a false flag staged event. It was a despicable thing to do, wasn't it? It's terrified the children to get their jollies until they go to war and kill the children, I guess. So, we'll talk about New York. New York. So it's not going to be a super long show tonight because I'm hurting everywhere. All right, let's talk about another part of New York. The last nuclear plant at Indian Point. This is why you don't want a nuclear plant. Trust me. How nuclear kills fish. This Indian Point, which is on the... Oh my God, I can't remember the river. Maybe that's a good thing. One of Indian Point's reactors, meanwhile, sits atop a fault line. Well, Japan's reactors are sitting on a 3,000-year-old fault line. That just ruptured. And look at the carnage up there. But this is unbelievably important if you're not familiar with this story. In this study, these aging plants have a devastating impact on surrounding fish populations. Environmental analysts in the 2 states have found that these facilities kill more than 17 billion adult fish each year in New York and another 9 billion in New Jersey. So 26 billion adult fish. 26 billion. 26 billion. How many eggs do they lay each year? I wonder if they were alive. The National Marine Fisheries Services found that if they were allowed to live out their lifespan, or even half of it. The National Marine Fisheries Services found that once through the cooling system, which is a 1 million gallons per reactor. It's 1,500 tons a minute, per reactor, 1 million gallons a minute. It was vacuuming up trillions of newly hatched fish and destroying them in the heat exchangers. And there's strong evidence, let me hit that number again, trillions. So you got 36 billion or 26 billion adult fish, trillions of baby fish, and there's strong evidence that the decline in the fish stocks along the entire northeast Atlantic seaboard, including Canada, is due more to the destruction of baby fish than overfishing of adults by commercial fleets. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, nuclear. The Indian Point plant, but it doesn't stop there, on the Hudson River, I can't believe I couldn't remember that just now, which sucks in 2.5 billion gallons of water daily. 2.5 billion. Now, each glass of water, and there's 16 glasses in a gallon, right? So each glass got a billion creatures, and 75 to 100 million of those in each glass of water is the phytoplankton, and that's the basis of the food chain, the basis of the oxygen chain, the basis of the carbon sequestration chain. 75 to 100 million. The other 900 million are starfish larvae, eggs, and sea urchin eggs, and like a codfish might have 700,000 eggs. The oysters might have several hundred thousand eggs, and the list goes on. And so it destroys those eggs and larvae and small fries and the phytoplankton basis of the food chain, the oxygen and carbon sequestration chain. So multiply 2.5 billion by 16 million to get the number of creatures killed in a 24-hour period at 407 current reactors worldwide each day. Now, the fuel pools are hemorrhaging radiation. That's destroying all the birds and bees, and particularly the bees, for instance, because the pollen, it's radioactive pollen, they bring that back to their nest, to their hive. So let me go back to this one. So the Indian Point plant on the Hudson River sucks in 2.5 billion gallons of water daily, kills about 2 billion juvenile mature fish a year in its screens or in the thermal plume. 2 billion, so you got trillions of babies, 26 billion adult fish. Let me go back to that one. Did I make a mistake there? Yeah, 26 billion adult fish, trillions of newly hatched fish, 2 billion juvenile mature fish a year in the screens. That's another way they're killing. And they estimated 300 billion, the NRC estimated more than 300 billion baby fish are killed each year when they are sucked into the 40-foot wide intake pipes. So a nuclear power plant is just the most destructive thing imaginable. State officials have committed to achieving a zero-emission electricity. Zero emission. Like, how can you have zero emission? What the hell are you talking about? Like, zero emission was a study by a scumbag, Miles Allen, that it was weaponized by United Nations against humanity, right? Let me see if I can find out. I'm not going to say quick, because I always say quick, and everybody knows, everybody laughs at me, snickers at me. Data. I don't mind waiting, but don't say you're going to do it quick, Data. I heard you. And I do hear people talking about they're leaving comments, and the comments disappear right away. The nuclear industry lobbyist works at Google, right? They're controlling YouTube, my YouTube channel. They really got nobody else to pick on. So Miles Allen was the physicist behind net zero. He's got a cushy job, I think, is at Cambridge as a professor for doing that paper. And the United Nations took that paper and weaponized it against humanity. There was 4 of these papers. And you're familiar with all of this stuff. Let me bring that up to you. Let me run you through that. There was Brock Wallace, or Wallace Brocker, rather. He's the father of global warming. There's Miles Allen. He's the father of net zero. There's BP Oil. And BP oil is the father of the carbon footprint because they crashed an oil tanker on the rocks, a cheap old one that was broken down. It ran up on the rocks and they polluted thousands of miles of coastline. And then they came out with a large advertising campaign to blame you because you needed the oil. It was your fault. They weren't trying to make a profit. They were just doing you a favor. And then the fourth paper was James Hansen's. And James Hansen is best known for his climatology, which the solution to everything for climate for these guys is nuclear. And so he's climate change. BP oil is carbon footprint. Miles Allen is net zero. And Wallace Brocker is the father of global warming. So that's the four papers that have been used to bludgeon humanity and the 8 million species by this military-industrial complex known as it's been weaponized against humanity. Christopher Hansen, the chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, toured a nuclear power plant in upstate New York on Tuesday. The push for clean energy has been well received by everyone. Some consumers and businesses, because their version of clean energy is nuclear. See? Nuclear is not clean. You can wipe a pig's arse all at once. It's just going to shit every time you pull his tail, right? Nuclear is the same way. As some consumers and businesses... Don't ask me where that one come from. I got no idea. However, I think I was traumatized by a pig after pulling on his tail when I was young, but I can't really remember. I might have, I might not have. It's hard to say. However, advocates for nuclear energy well, it's that time, I guess. I got to break out the peroxide, spray the jugglers. And what that does is flood your body with oxygen right away. In about a minute, my whole body is flooded with oxygen. And this stuff is really good for detonating parasites and germs and viruses and pathogens in your blood. It's really good for it. It's like the ultimate. And as long as you do that, you'll never have the flu. If you got the flu, get a little spray bottle, fill it up with peroxide, and spray it on your jugular veins, under your arms, anywhere where you're going to get huge veins, carry oxygen throughout your body. And you can even just wash your body with it. It's just oxygen, right? And that flu is going to be gone. If you got a sore throat and you're dry hacks and you're hacking your guts out and you can't sleep and been going on for weeks or months, you take peroxide and you're going to get about 3 hours relief the first time. And it's only going to get better after that. And after a few days, you're going to forget about it. Just like you never had to hack anymore. 99.9% of the time. It's almost 100% guaranteed. And a lot of people will go to antibiotics, right, to try to resolve that when you don't need to. You just use peroxide. I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying I'm a doctor. I'm just saying from personal experiences and from professionals, that's their assertions. And because I've been using it for so long now, I 100% love it. I love it. It's fantastic. If you got like a headache, spray your jugular veins, right? It puts all this oxygen into your brain, relieves all that pressure, right? The push for clean energy hasn't been well received. Advocates for nuclear energy believe it can make electricity more efficient. However, advocates for nuclear energy believe it can make electricity. Well, the nuclear industry will tell you whatever you want to hear. There's nothing they won't. There's no law too big for them to tell. However, advocates for nuclear energy believe it can make electricity. Well, why don't you give us a name? Who's this advocate? Like, I know advocates that say if we kill all the fucking journalists on the planet, the world will be much better. It's the same thing as saying advocates for nuclear energy believe it can make electricity more efficient. And there's advocates there to say we get rid of all the stupid, scumbag, degenerate, murderous, monstrous journalists, that the world can be, it can be more efficient on our planet. Last August, Governor Kathy Hochul, hopefully I butchered the name, announced funding for the Inflation Reduction Act will go to 4 upstate nuclear disease factories that has the potential to save New Yorkers millions as early as 2025. Like, first off, if anybody in the nuclear industry says you can save money, just call them what they are, a piece of shit lawyer. Hanson, obviously, anytime you don't have to build a new facility, you can make the one you got run a little longer. It's a wise investment. No. Well, the one you got is closed down because of embrittlement from neutron bombardment, from beta rays and alphas and gamma shines and X-rays. The whole site is nuclear waste, right? But these are high-pressure reactors. These are 1,000 psi, 2,000 psi, pounds per square inch. So having brittle metal and 1,000 pounds per square inch is not a very good combination. That's an oh shit, I got to run away and leave my home behind combination. Contamination of food in Czechoslovakia by cesium and radioisotopes from Chernobyl accident. Pregnancy outcome in Sweden after Chernobyl accidents. What are you doing all these studies for, I wonder? Contamination in Australia soil with cesium-137. Cesium-137 in perch in Swedish lakes. You know, after Chernobyl, he closed freshwater fishing for 30 years in Sweden. Because it's like a banana and a potato chip, right? Trends in the human sex odds at birth in Europe and Chernobyl nuclear power plant. So, like, the studies that they're doing suggest a possible long-term chronic influence. Got me good that time, James. Oh, Mr. James. I beat you to it, buddy. I beat you to it, man. I'm pretty proud of myself here right now. I'm preening like a little bird or something. Go ahead, James. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to call because you're the only person on this planet that can help. When, you know, I'm reading a story today about a fin whale that washed dead ashore in Oregon today. It was a story that I read. And, you know, Kevin did a piece on it today. And, you know, he saw the same kind of whale when he was down in San Diego. And the whale, you look at the picture of it, and it's like, you could fit it in the back of your car.
Oh my God!
It's just a sad, and there's nothing in the report. It's like, well, the scientists say that it's starving. Well, no shit. It's a thin whale.
It's emaciated.
It's like a minnow.
Oh my God! I'm not laughing.
I can't get over. Yeah. The image, Dana, like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, it's just so ridiculous how bad it's gotten, in fact, that the media that has you so censored. I mean, there's like, what, 30 people watching the greatest show on the planet?
Thank you, my friend, yeah. I'm glad you called in about that, actually, because I read your comment, but you seen the mood I was in at the beginning. I was like all over the place, and I forgot about it. And then tonight I would have read the comments and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to mention it.
No. You've got so much going on. Don't apologize. Don't at all.
I know.
You're doing such a great job.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm only calling in because I'm just like, God, you know, I gotta talk to Dana before the show ends and everything. Get this off my chest. That's all.
I'm glad you did. No, I'm glad you did, and people need to hear it. And I got a show ready to go for the die-offs, and they're not my favorite shows, right? But
right.
I got one ready to go, and those headlines will be in it. And insects and birds, folks, and we'll cover all the bizarre die-offs that don't make any sense. And these emaciated animals, there was 70 emaciated gray whales in just a short period of time showed up along the coast, and scientists were confused, perplexed even, of how whales can travel so far and be emaciated. Well, because there's no food out there. And now we're seeing it where they're like minnows. And when I laughed about that, that was the gallows laugh, right? It was just like that, because like the picture I has in my mind is frightening, see? The same as you, obviously.
Well, I just think about, how the Navy has sonar, like the passive sonar, and they pick up biologics,
Yep.
and they can hear the whale call, and they can plot them how far they're out there, and they're way out there, right? Like the whale can communicate
It's absurd.
thousands of miles.
That's right. That's absurd distances, isn't it? It's amazing.
And it's like, what are they saying today, if they're saying anything at all? And you see them, a thin whale like that, just emaciated off the Oregon coast, and how many calls it tried to make out before it landed there. And I don't know.
And the media's out there right now trying to blame it on the wind farms offshore, right? So it's like madness. Like for folks who are not aware, the whale traveled probably 8,000 kilometers or so, didn't find any food, and went from 12 inches of blubber down to 2 inches, and then it showed up. But in this case, it's a small whale, but even a baby whale is considered massive, right? And it should never be able to fit in the back of a small car, right? So this is severe, horrific emaciation. Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
And I can't. I just only wonder if there's any blue whales left.
Kevin covered it, right?
On the planet.
Oh, we're getting to that point, aren't we? Like
I just hope National Geographic's watching you, Dana. That's all I want to say. It's just that they better be watching you, because they're not doing their job. Only you are.
They're not doing nothing, man. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. It's horrifying, James. Okay. Anything else you want to throw out there, my friend? That's great stuff. I appreciate it.
That's it. Thank you so much, Dan. Love you so much. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, buddy. Yeah. Talk to you later. That's James Lucid, folks, in the comments section there. You know, James, one of the best friends that this planet has, is supporting us constantly and is always bringing relevant information to the table, right? And these whales we're talking about, right, we're seeing this in mass. And there was, since 2016, there's around 10,000 whales, gray whales. So you have, I'll bring it up for you. You have, well, just hang on a second, actually. Because the evidence, I can say what I want, but if I don't show the evidence, a lot of new people are not able to comprehend what I'm. Let me see how my memory is working here. If I use capital letters, that probably would have showed up by now. Just bear with me. I just want to articulate what James was talking about a bit. Don't touch anything, Dana. Let me do this again. I'm starting to learn. Here we go. So unusual mortality events. Let me just touch on that real quick. Now, I might do a die-off show on Sunday, for Sunday night. Or I might just wait until... Well, this is just a quick one. So I got an unusual mortality... I'll put this on a bigger screen here in a second for you. I'll put me in there somewhere. So you got an unusual mortality event for North Atlantic right whales. You got an unusual mortality event for humpback whales. You got an unusual mortality event for minke whales. You got an unusual mortality event for gray whales. And it's stunning how many gray whales have died. And they're filter feeders, so they're feeding on the phytoplankton, the zooplankton, which is annihilated by radioactive fallout right away because it lives at the surface, right? And so there's not just that, though, right? The mussels disappeared all the way from British Columbia to Alaska off the coastline, and now we know because of Kevin Blanche and Yoshi Samatsu, which is a former Japan Times Sunday editor and a forensic investigative journalist that I've done a radio show with every Sunday for about 2 years, and with Jeff Rintz, and then you got unusual mortality events for all kinds of different species of whales, like the polar whales. they get to New Zealand, Australia, and that's where they normally turn around. But they're emaciated when they get there. And so the first number of years, they used to describe them as emaciated. And by 2016, they stopped describing their physical conditions. And so these unusual mortality events have tipped into many other species. So you had over 1,000 beaked whales a couple of years ago, which meant, so for everyone that we find, there's at least 9 more that died that we didn't find. That's the consensus. These are stunning numbers, right? So with the beaked whales down in Britain, they found over 1,000 in many different stages of decomposition, right? And so, which means that the mortality event was sustained for a very long time. But they also have found many others since that, and we covered a lot of that we can find because we scour the internet and gather this up, and then we do usually a 3-hour show to get through. The bears in British Columbia, the grizzly bears were showing up emaciated. They were saying, well, because there's no salmon, Dana. No, but 95% of the diet of the grizzly bear is berries. They eat 200,000 berries a day. They eat grubs. They eat roots. They eat they eat caribou. They eat elk. They eat moose. They eat, they're predatory animals too. But their diet is not just salmon. And so there's a lot of hokey pokey. Well, maybe we'll cover that Sunday, or maybe we'll cover it on next Thursday's show. The secondary sex ratio in Italy over the past 80 years, let's go back to this one first. The trends in the human sex odds at birth in Europe and the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. No, right there. The findings suggest a possible long-term chronic influence of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident on the human sex odds at birth in several European countries. What they had done, though, right, they had done a sex odds, which is more males than females being born, and that quantifies heavy radioactive contamination of your continent, basically. They do the same thing in Italy, and they discovered the same thing. And potential impact of radiological contamination after atmospheric nuclear testing. They actually done sex study ratios worldwide after atmospheric nuclear testing, which is a nuclear war. It's the same weapon, the same radioactive fallout. There's zero difference. Outside, you didn't blow up a city, and that's irrelevant when it comes to the weapons, when it comes to the emissions, when it comes to the anthropogenic man-made isotopes. Radiation, one of the few stressors known to elevate the sex ratio while dropping the total births. Radiation is one of the few stressors known to elevate the sex ratio, more males than females, and the dropping of the births is not just sterilization, it's more males than females. So less females, less population. So this is going to be amplified many orders of magnitude when it comes to the insects and the birds and the mammals, the animals and everything else. They're infinitely more vulnerable to these kinds of... and so radiation fallout, just a single atom, you put 200 million on the head of a needle, you can't perceive it or see it or hear it or smell it or taste it or anything else. But that's 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. And it's forever. It's a forever. And the industry has no shame. The industry is doing it on purpose. So typical nuclear accidents, the first thing you're going to study is Down syndrome and autism. Down syndrome time clustering in January 1987, the next year, in Belarus, linked with Chernobyl. Down syndrome in Scotland, 1978 to 1989, revealed a significant higher than expected incidences of case in 1987. Chernobyl's 1986, right? And Chernobyl's anniversary is next month. We'll be covering that extensively. Chernobyl. Incidents of illegal abortions and congenital abnormalities, malformations in Hungary post-Chernobyl. Down syndrome was an indicator. So you had Down syndrome in Hungary. You had Down syndrome studies in Scotland showing it and quantifying those assertions. You had Down syndrome in Belarus, because that's one of the first things in autism, is one of the first things that will show up in the newborns, see? So Imagine what's happening to the baby possums, the baby foxes, the baby rabbits, the baby moose, the baby this, the baby that, the baby insects, the baby birds, the baby... But think of the toxicity that it has these particular attributes so far away in such a small quantity. Incidences of illegal abortions, and think about that every nuclear power plant is surrounded by fucking farms, and you can see why I get pissy sometimes. And it's righteous pissy, by the way. There's such a thing as that. Incidences of illegal abortion and congenital abnormalities in Hungary. I should go and bust myself up every day because I'm more jolly, right? Because I'm hurting so much, I got to do that so I don't look so fucking dreary. Down syndrome. Okay, so Chernobyl, 3,000 miles away from Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. I think it's only 3,000 kilometers actually, but maybe it's 3,000 miles. For many farmers here, it brought back memories of the wind scale. They closed 9,000 farms. It was actually 9,400 farms in Ireland and Scotland, United Kingdom, because of an accident in Chernobyl. Chernobyl reactors are 1/100th of a Fukushima reactor meltdown because it's graphite, right? And it's not a very big reactor. It was brand new, didn't have any fuel pools. But each of Fukushima reactors, there's 4 of them, and there's 8 fuel pools melted down. And each fuel pool got probably 8 to 10 reactor cores in it. This is pure uranium, pure plutonium. So each reactor core at Japan was equal to 100 Chernobyls. So there's 4,000 of fucking these things covering our planet, basically. And you can see how nasty Chernobyl is through the studies I just showed you, which is just a fraction of what I'm going to show you next month for the anniversary on the 28th of March, right? And you can go look up the studies or the anniversary episodes we've done on it. And while you're doing it, you should put that in your archive. Download it, get it in your archive. Download the Chernobyl, the 3 Mile Islands, the wind scales, any anniversary of major catastrophic events should be downloaded and put in your archives and should be studied, because these will allow you to extrapolate information accurately. Like particularly there's a couple of Chernobyls on this particular site on YouTube here that I've produced in the last couple of years. And one of them has 900 studies, so it's like the whole fucking thing is, one study, here's another study, here's another study, and we just read 10 words and here's another study, and read another 10 words and here's another study. And we went through 900 fucking studies on the anniversary. But what it done was it gave you 900 things, 900 academic studies done by the nuclear industry at different facets. And it's mind-boggling how much radiation permeates into the ecosystem and every facet of every minutia, every detail of your life. It's stunning. It's just stunning. Just in, a new study revealed that deaths and mutations increased sharply from exposures to Fukushima contamination, especially at low doses. Small levels of cesium may be significantly toxic. In other words, doesn't look good for the animals. Now remember that study there, right? Even tiny amounts of radioactive food made the caterpillars become abnormal butterflies. And this is important for the next study that came out today that we're going to bring up. Nature's scientific report. I fucking hate Nature, by the way. We examined possible relationships between the dose of ingested cesium per larva and the mortality abnormality rates. Both the mortality abnormality rates increased sharply, especially at low doses. And the mortality and abnormality rates increased sharply. Additionally, there seemed to be no threshold level below which no biological responses could be detected. So the dose response data suggests that the relatively small levels of artificial cesium, anthropogenic man-made, from the Fukushima Daiichi meltdowns may be significantly toxic to some individuals in butterfly populations. The half-lethal amount that will kill 50% of a test subject dose is 1.9 becquerels per larva. 1.9 becquerels. So it's an atom pulsing energy, atom and a half pulsing energy every second. Will destroy the larva. We got 220 million atoms of iodine-129 here in Canada in multiple studies from Ottawa, from the capital of Canada. It's sustained for many months. And what that means was you saturated the thyroid glands of every species and every human on the planet, period. And that's permanent because it's got a 15 million year half-life. And which means every species is producing radioactive hormones, which is the worst recipe you can imagine for a future of species. It's debilitating for all the species. Japan radiology just... Radiation can cause mutations like fingers growing out of a shoulder and other deformities in future humans. And low radiation doses could cause significant health problems even in future generations. If the testicles are exposed to radiation, this can cause genetic defects like fingers growing out of the shoulders. So we got a study, and I don't know where it is off the top of my head. I can find it, but I'm not going to go look for it. Because I really wasn't expecting to last this long, really, to the show. And we're almost through, but we're an hour and 25 minutes in, which surprised me I lasted this long because I was pretty busted up today. I'll show you a couple of pictures and explain it to you at the end of it. So there's a study of 360 atoms sequestered of sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs in California. There's two separate studies. One of 1,500 atoms of sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs. These are hot particles per cubic meter of air. And an independent another study from a different institution of 360 atoms a day sequestered in the testicles of the males in California each day. So if the testicles are exposed to radiation, and everybody was, this can cause genetic defects events in future generations, like fingers growing out of the shoulders and other deformities. And the nuclear industry says, no, you can be like Spider-Man or the Hulk or Superman. Because if they show you the truth, then you're going to run away screaming, no! You know, SpongeBob. Look at SpongeBob. Where they got a sponge, like a living sponge, that turns into a inhuman because of radiation from the Marshall Islands, the Castle Bravo, which is equal to 1,000 Nagasaki bombs going off at one fucking time. Yet our understanding of the quantitative and I'm missing something here. Where's the name of that study? I don't know where the name of that study. I put the name of the study in the description. Our understanding of mutation impacts of ionizing radiation has been incomplete. But it's not incomplete. I just showed you a whole bunch of studies, right? You closed all the farms where increased sharply from exposure, deaths, and mutations. I showed you all kinds of studies. So they say, but their understanding is incomplete. So this is a study that came out today, and the link is below to that study. I'm going to try some water this time, and then some Sprite. This is a super important study, probably the most important study we've seen in a long time. Interestingly, experiments subjecting cells to low radiation doses rate over 100 days demonstrated that mutation quantities under equivalent total radiation doses mirrored those of high dose exposures. So low dose over 100 days was the same as getting a high dose right away. And through this study, we have clearly elucidated the effects of radiation on cells at the molecule level, the molecular level. There it is. I spray it up before it goes any further. Let me bring it up on a big screen for you. So you got molecules, atoms, electrons, nucleus, I guess, what the hell else is it? Protons, and inside the neutrons you got quarks and everything else, right? Now they're developing microscopes to look even more shallow. Now this guy is from Cass, which is South Korea. Where am I to? That's South Korea. So every time I see the word Cass, I generally get upset, right? I'll show you why. Here's a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering at Cass, too, in South Korea. He's pretty smart, Dana. Like, I'm going to trust him before I trust you. You're not a professor at Cass, of quantum, nuclear, blah, 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 blah. Dana. I know I'm not. I don't need you to tell me. I wouldn't want to go to that shithole. The 1.37 million tons of wastewater, they said, stored in the 1,000 tanks. Let's be real. The tanks were empty, right? Because all the nuclear was gone in the first 6 days. Just the hoodwink. They don't want you to look at the destroyed, missing buildings and 8 fuel pools at the top of each of the buildings. They don't want you to think about that. They want you to think about the tanks. He said that is equal to 2.2 grams. So only 2.2 grams and only tritium at that got out of these buildings. And there's 4 of them, by the way. That's just 2 of them. Now, don't worry, said Cass professor. The discharge like throwing a sugar cube of 3 grams, a 3-gram sugar cube into the ocean. Well, if only tritium got out, why did you pick up 30 million one-ton bags of radiation in 3% of the land only? Right? Is that a good question or is that a good question? But this particular study, I support. Now we understand how radiation changes the DNA of our cells. And this was I'll get it out of the way in case you want to screen capture this for... That's a really important study. Everybody should read that study if you can. And just search it and you'll find it. The study is beneath my video, right? But there's no link, but just copy and paste it, search it, and you'll find that study. Nano nuclear energy to present and exhibit an innovation zero, right? Because zero has the connotations of net zero, 2024. UK's largest net zero conference. And they're looking for students. So they got students, or maybe that's the next one. A world-class nuclear engineering team. Like, there is no emerging micro or advanced nuclear technology. Like, you can paint yourself up whatever you want, but it doesn't exist. So why are you out there pandering when it doesn't even exist? An emerging microreactor advanced nuclear technology company, but it doesn't matter how emerging you are when the technology doesn't exist. And if 100 other companies haven't cracked that code, what makes them think they can crack it? Is sponsoring the upcoming Innovative Zero 2024 conference in London. Innovation Zero. So instead of saying net zero and piggybacking off UN, they're trying to distance themselves a little bit, but they want to use it, that particular connotation of zero, to invoke certain things, right? Russia issues an accidental nuclear escalation warning. I was studying that thing because I thought that was a different story about the space. Nuclear Fuel Services awarded a $122 million contract by TVA for uranium downblending. This is where they take natural uranium, right? And I'm not sure how this works. And they downblend it, so-called, with highly enriched uranium, and now it's called low enriched uranium. So I think what they're doing, this is quite the neat trick, isn't it? So they take weapons grade, 15% or higher, military grade uranium, which is reclaimed uranium from a missile or nuclear weapon or fuel rods, right, that have already gone through a chain reaction. And then they're going to mix it with yellow cake. There's two types of yellow cake. One that comes out of the reactor and one that comes out of the mine. So if you talk about yellow cake and you don't say reactor or you don't say mine, the industry will come out and jump on you and say you're stupid or something, right? Because the idea was name them both the same name. One is innocuous, is pretty inert when it first comes out of the mine. The other one is lethal by the cup, right? Just walking past it will kill you. And so now you got the highly enriched uranium. You're going to marry it into the fuel rods with natural uranium. Now you got a fuel rod. This is what they're up to. Mixed oxide. This is mixed oxide, plutonium mixed oxide fuel we're talking about. So downblending involved mixing highly enriched uranium with natural uranium, creating low enriched uranium for commercial and national defense purposes. What defense purpose? No one's going to use a nuclear weapon. Hopefully nobody that's stupid. Creating, well, like, when you see what the Montana Air Force done today, then you got to wonder, right? There really is stupid people out there in the military. They'll do anything for a few yucks. Creating low enriched uranium for commercial national defense purposes. As part of the Project Sapphire, a secret joint operation between the United States and Kazakhstan to remove highly enriched uranium from the former Soviet state. So we're talking about really old weapons. So this is 100% mixed plutonium mixed oxide fuel originally. This is how they downblended and ended up with that. Now they're going to make fuel rods out of it by downblending it with natural uranium. There's no such thing as natural uranium. They mine the uranium. That process is unbelievably intensive. And then to filter it out, they have to use ponds of chemicals. And those chemicals now are incredibly contaminated on their own. But once you go through these processes, that's allowed to evaporate into the environment because there's no checks and balances. There's no activists out there saying, hey, what the hell are you doing? This is a crime. There's no senators, no Congress people are saying this is outrageous when it's fucking 100% outrageous. So as part of the Project Sapphire, now we've talked about this over the years, a secret, well not so secret, joint operation between the United States and Kazakhstan to remove highly enriched uranium from the former Soviet state, the USSR. Last year, Nuclear Fuel Services was awarded $300 million U.S. Navy contract for the production of nuclear reactor fuel for submarines and aircraft carriers. So the only reason these aircraft carriers and submarines, so-called small modular reactors, work is because they're using a form of mixed oxide fuel, right? Despicable scum. And they're hemorrhaging it into the oceans all the time. Finland to have the first operational nuclear waste repository, transparency. Good luck on that one. Dialogue key to gaining understanding from the victims in the communities around it. So, the Canadian Nuclear Waste Management Organization, a couple of useful idiots that we cover once in a while, just to bring it back into the lexicon, claimed that if you put copper on your nuclear waste cast, which are containments, well, they cannot contain it for so long before it melts down. It's going to melt down at some point anyway once you leave it alone. It's going to stop it from decaying for 1 million years. Like this is, and what we're talking about is 1/32 of an inch of copper will stop nuclear cast. Again, this is insane suggestions because of the Wigner effect, which is the neutron bombardment, the beta rays, the gamma shines, the X-rays will break down no matter what you use. Even if this was tungsten, it's going to break it down within 30 years. This is what a typical life of a nuclear power plant was only for original charters were 30 years. Listen, the nuclear waste is splitting atoms into your environment. It shouldn't be allowed to exist. Once it comes out of the reactor with the containment, there's no containment. The reason the fuel is dangerous is because it's splitting atoms. They tell you, well, you don't know what to do with nuclear waste. Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to vent it all into the environment 24 hours a day for the entire time that you got it because you don't have a solution to put it away to stop it from doing that. And these containers, They're putting all these down in one spot. When one goes, guess what's going to happen? It's going to burn at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. What do you think is going to happen to the other ones? It doesn't need oxygen to have a criticality chain reaction. So suggesting it's not going to melt down is ludicrous. And at some point, it's going to melt down. It's going to eat everything above it and around it and consume it. And if it gets any water in there, it's going to detonate because you know how much water expands per liter. Like at Fukushima, the Earth is split in multiple places where the radioactive emissions coming out of the ground are at over 10 sieverts per hour. It looks like steam, but if you walk through it, you're a dead man right on the spot. And they abandoned the site multiple times because of it. That's why the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants who don't speak the language are working there. That's why nuclear scientists, you couldn't drag them there pulling on their hair, drag them across the pavement. They would literally chew your arm off to get away from you. Area surveys were conducted in 5 municipalities, area surveys, and 5 municipalities that consented to a disposal site for nuclear waste. Well, everything goes there, gets vented and repackaged. So, yeah, they kick back into the community. Like, Taiwan moved the natives out to Orchard Island. And when they wanted a nuclear dump, they said to the natives on Orchard Island, we like to put a canning factory out here for tuna and crab meat and salmon and stuff like that. And the natives, and we're going to give you, everybody in your community, your natives, we're going to give you a stipend every month, like $1,000 or $2,000. You don't have to do nothing. And they're like, this is fantastic. Canning factories. They're going to show us free money every month. And so they built a nuclear waste site and called it a canning factory. That's what Taiwan done. Nuclear industry. They were trying to up everybody else, I guess, because nuclear industry, no matter where you go, is revolting and parasitic. And only the areas that said, yeah, give us some nuclear waste. Because they told them over and over, it's like a banana, it's like potato chips. And besides, one of you might turn into the Hulk or Spider-Man, for goodness sakes. If something goes wrong, don't worry. We need more Spider-Men. We need more Hulks on this planet. You'll be okay. The government got your back. The International Atomic Energy Agency is claiming 12% of nuclear energy contributes 12% of global electricity production. Is not as 9.2% or something, right? Last year was 507 gigawatts of renewables came online in 12 months. Nuclear lost 2 gigawatts or 1.7 gigawatts, 2 large nuclear power plants, backwards, where renewables was equal to over 600 large nuclear power plants coming online in 12 months. In total, there's only 407 nuclear power plants worldwide, which is 365 gigawatts. Nuclear almost doubled it last year in 2023, for goodness sakes. So Raphael Grossi is gross. That's all I got to say about him. British taxpayers, British slaves, the sleeves, are told to cover the cost of a French nuclear power station. No, the French politicians demanded that Britons must now pay even more for a delayed plant. And the original estimate for that Sizewell plant was $7 billion in 2007. The current price tag, which just rose by $10 billion US dollars, is $58.9 billion US dollars. Like, it's absurd. I mean, when you, all these plants, they need 2 large gas, oil, or coal plants dedicated to it to run these plants. But not just to run it, to build it. Look at electricity this creature uses. The biggest construction site in human history is the Sizewell plant. Everything is triple inspected, so you can have 3 different independent inspectors inspect every fucking nail, every screw, every scrap of wire, everything. It's the stupidest industry, inconceivable. Shipping nuclear option is moved towards net zero. Again, you see Miles Allen's paper being used to bludgeon humanity and the future of humanity. Another end of the world is possible. First off, this is the fusion experimental test reactor, right? It never ran, never produced energy, it never produced. They alleged now the very last time they turned it on, they actually had a net gain. Like, please. Like, really, if they had got a net gain, they would have kept it running. They would have rebuilt it like they're going to do with Pickering, okay? Ukraine and Hyundai E&C joins forces to boost nuclear energy program. What are you talking about? Ukraine right now has ran out of male adults and ran out of middle-aged men and is now recruiting young women. So how are they going to replenish the population of the country if they're going to send their genetics into the fucking meat grinder? It's a slaughter, right? They had a video showed up a few days ago of Down syndrome soldier. And the soldiers, the Ukraine, right? The Ukraine soldiers, they brutalized that kid, right? He was just a kid with Down syndrome. What they done to him was unbelievable. It was gut-wrenching. Don't worry, you got a couple of suits, Dana. A couple of guys in $5,000 suits. That's what they get. This is their job. They get paid to do that right there. Destroy your future and your life. They make a good living. They can even probably buy a small skyscraper when they retire. All they had to do was sign away all your fucking life with a stroke of a pen. There's one about the students. Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. Anytime you see something like that, they're going after your kids. Tickets go live for the nuclear decommissioning event. Don't ever let your child participate in this degenerates. And why don't you use the corporations? Why don't you use the laboratories? Why don't you use Loveless Respiratory Research Institute to come up with a solution? Why don't you use corporations with a long history working in the nuclear industry to come up with a solution? Why are you going after students? You degenerate, disgusting, parasitic, revolting. Talk about revolting. Fukushima Fruit Kingdom. Get your radioactive peaches and rice right here, baby. In a basin sandwiched between eastern and western mountain ranges, surrounded by 30 million one-ton bags of radiation that he picked up, which was 3% of the land. You can't clean the radiation in the mountain and the forest, which is 78% of the land. And now they're promoting the food from this area as some kind of redeeming qualities. Is almost too much for me, eh? Hi, I'm stupid as stupid gets. I'm in a nuclear wasteland, and I'm smarter and better than everybody. Yeah, I got the piece of land for next to nothing. Radiation mutational impacts on mammalian cells revealed. Ionizing radiation has been associated with various cancers and genetic disorders, as evidenced by survivors and descendants of atomic bombing and the Chernobyl disaster. What about Fukushima? Chernobyl was a single reactor, was an old-fashioned, graphite reactor. Fukushima was 4 reactors, 100% gone, and 8 fuel pools gone. And why would you invoke the survivors and descendants of atomic bombing for like 10 kilograms? Each of Fukushima reactors were several million pounds. It's just humiliating that these people are your checks and balances, and they're the first one to cut your throat when it all goes to hell. And that's their job. Their job is to cut your throat, right? Eiffel Power, not Eiffel Tower, but Eiffel Power. You get it? France's nuclear charge. 21 world leaders pledged to triple disease factories' capacities by 2050. And I forgot to dig up a picture of this because it's surrounded by farms. As a consistent supporter of nuclear energy, it's encouraging to see the degenerate French energy bill reaffirming the country's commitment to nuclear power disease factories as energy sovereignty. The draft bill omits setting targets for solar power, wind power, and other renewables in favor of expanding the sustainable choice of using nuclear energy as a competitive and carbon-free source of electricity, following 28 constipated party, conference of parties, 28 in Abu Dhabi last year, right? We covered that. Well, actually, they took me offline for a week, right? Gave me a strike. And so I was going to cover it every single day. Next thing you know, they drummed up a little infraction, and my videos are full of infractions, and took me offline for 7 days, the first 7 days. And they also took away my ability to live stream for a couple of months, right? Like 4 months, was it? Fucking despicable scum. Excuse the Canadian in me. So the draft bill omits setting targets for renewables and only promotes the stupidest thing imaginable, nuclear. Montana Malmstrom's nuclear missile-based lockdown lifted after an active shooter report. And it turned, like I covered this at the very beginning, they actually had a drill going on that day for an active shooter. Oh my God, boy. And all these missile bases are typically surrounded by farms, and they're hemorrhaging radiation, right? All the missileers have to are getting cancer right now. And cancer is not the only thing from this stuff, right? Russia denies the U.S. claim that it plans to put nuclear missiles in space. And sources are concerned that Moscow will target satellites. Does anybody really believe the Americans haven't got nuclear missiles up there? Anybody that gullible out there? The next frightening war frontier, Russia's nukes in space. And so they turned that into a weapon. Like they're always digging up, oh, Russia's going to nuke you. Every day we get those headlines. Every day for the last 2 years. So I got the winch on the back of the bike. And that's not a very, I got a plastic bag around it, but that kept tearing. And I had to use it 3 times. Thank God I put it on. But we had so much snow. I showed you a couple of videos last night at the end of the show. And so I got 2 of these, right? So on my truck, I can piggyback these and get it up higher. I can hook up my trailer, but I can still use the winch this way for the boat, and I can use the same setup for my flat deck trailer, which is 16 by 8 foot, and I can also use it for the quad, right? If I'm going on research expeditions, because I like to go deep in there. I'm getting healthy after last year. I had a bunch of heart attacks and 7 stents put in, and that thing's a 12,000 pound winch. So theoretically, I can hook my front winch onto a tree or something and use my back winch to pull a truck back on the road, for instance, right? Even though the bike only weighs 800 pounds, I can just winch onto the tree in front of me, and I got a winch on the back of me. But I must admit, it's that all this weight on the back tires make a huge difference. This is, I was stuck there today. Now, that's not the same spot, but just in front of that, I got high centered. Because the drift was where the plow came in. Now, the plow came in today, and I just beat the plow today. And so I was excited. When I came in the house today, because it was so much, I left early this morning, and when I finally got everything cleaned up and got back in the house, it was 2 o'clock or something. And I was so hungry, it wasn't funny. Okay, so I'm going into the city tomorrow, and I'm going to pick up a winch cover because I can't keep using a plastic bag, right? And you got to have in this kind of environment where I'm out on an island in the Atlantic Ocean, you want to protect this stuff because it's so fucking expensive. These winches, that wasn't cheap. One of the best things I've ever bought, because I got a hernia from all the winching I do by hand, right? Because I also bought a hand winch too for half price. But if anybody want to donate, I got to pick up, I got 16 brackets to put on my trailer, and there's 4 bolts for each trailer. So I got to buy a lot of these, right? And so I need different sizes of these leg bolts. That's one of the things I'm going to be picking up tomorrow. A 3-inch cutoff tool I'm buying tomorrow. It's on sale for $21, so I'll be buying that. And I'm trying to make up my mind. I want to buy this one here. This is the ear build sander is for me. It's going to be used on metal, and because it's got the long neck on it can reach in at all these places, right? Because I have to do all the maintenance on. I have a big operation. I got to do all the maintenance, and I didn't know you can get. It would be that cheap, right? That's pretty cheap. So that's my wish list. Is that one? Now the other one on my wish list for tomorrow, I saved $70 on this stick welder. Now I got the thin welder, which is really handy, but the stick welder. This is meant to be plugged into your house, so it'll work on my 100-foot 30-amp extension cord. So that's a big deal. So I like to get that tomorrow. So I'm asking people if you want to donate, this is the stuff I'm going to buy. And depending on how much we raise, I'll show it to you on Sunday night show what we picked up. And then for the extra stuff, I wouldn't mind having a set of these because I don't have a set of those. And you know I need them for all the equipment I got. This is a luxury, 13,000-pound vehicle ramp, but I do need it, right? You know how much work I do myself? It's absurd. Was there one more thing there? Yeah, this is $15 for the 6-inch twisted knot. This is because I got a bench grinder last week, right? A lot of this stuff is a one-time buy that I've been grabbing lately. These are one-time buys. But, you know, they add up, right? So we're looking at a little over $200. That if people want to donate, you'll find the links in my description. And if you don't donate, I'm going to show you this at the beginning of every show for the next week. The very beginning. Very first picture you're going to see is Stinkfoot. That'll give you nightmares, so. Don't think I won't do it. Don't think I won't do it. I'm going to close the poll down here in a second. Let's go over to the poll. Should the nuclear professionals work at Fukushima? Nuclear meltdowns instead of the homeless, the destitute, and the victims of society, and the immigrants who don't speak the language. And we got 44 votes. Thank you, everybody. We got 39 likes, which is a lot for poor Dana. And so if you make it this far in the video, consider giving me a thumbs up. Even imaginary one. I'll know. And if I seem a little squirrely tonight, because I am. I'm absolutely squirrely. And so I got about $200. Little $200. You know, if I get the rest of the little odds and ends I got in the list there, $230. And I'm going to pick up what I can tomorrow that I got gathered up, right? Which is about half of it. I can afford to buy. Because last couple of weekends we bought a lot of one-time buys of equipment, and then for the tools, you know, for the last year we've been building the tool shed, and I'm looking for these types of deals. Otherwise, I won't even look at them, right? I'm gonna fix that eye. Okay, so hugs for everybody. The links are in the very bottom of the description to donate to me. There's PayPal directly to Dana's PayPal. And the other link is to my website. Just scroll down past the first picture and you see a black button. You click on that and you can donate. But you'll see a list of credit cards that I accept in the bottom of my description. So if a bunch of people donate $10 or $15, I still got lots more stuff I'd like to pick up, but I'll be happy, more than thrilled to get that much, right? But I keep grabbing these little pieces, and been pretty vigilant doing that now for the last year. We got quite a decent workshop now. And I'm literally thrilled with what we got. So if I don't get nothing tomorrow, I'm not going to be heartbroken. But these deals only last a little while, and so I think it's appropriate I try to pick up what I can, keep this operation moving forward. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. Thank you, everybody, for finding time, the energy, the courage to hear the truth, the uncensored, crazy truth. Take care, folks. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Unless there's an event, I'll be back on Sunday. Have a great night.